Welcome to another edition of Reflections. I'm Fred Hammond, host of the program. We're here at the Cabot House talking to Susan Goganian, Executive Director of the Historical Society, now called Historic Beverly. We're very pleased to have Susan Goganian, our Executive Director of Historic Beverly, to talk about the changes here at the Society and also to see some of the changes physically in two of the buildings. We're standing here in the John Cabot House. Sue, and tell us what happened here.
Well, first of all, welcome to the Cabot House. This building is a visitor center for the Essex National Heritage Area and for Beverly, so this is a place to come if you want to find out more about the great stuff there is to do around here. This is one of three properties owned by Historic Beverly. It's our headquarters. It's where our Museum of Beverly History is, and also where people come weekly to research their family history, their house history, the American Revolution, transportation history, and a variety of other topics related to Beverly. So one of the things we wanted to start with was to show this hallway, because as part of our rebranding, we did a lot of interior work here, and we think we've livened it up considerably. So you see the beautiful 1781 hallway of the Cabot House and some of our artwork. At the top of the stairs there are images of our three properties. So this building on the bottom, and then the Balch House and Hale Farm, which are two colonial properties that Historic Beverly also owns. So as to the name change, we have been around since 1891. And our mission remains the same, which is to collect Beverly history and to share it with everyone. But we felt that we needed to shake things up a little bit, that people perhaps had an outdated impression of who we are and what we do. So thus the name change. So we spent a great deal of time talking to stakeholders, our board, our staff, our members, people in the community, and felt that Historic Beverly conveyed the essence of our mission, that we're about history and that we're about Beverly, and that we hope that people will see that as a way to connect to their community and our shared cultural heritage. So what you will also find has changed is that we have a brand new website, and that website, in addition to being, we hope, more informative and more colorful and more interesting, also has a link to a searchable database of our collections. What does that mean? That means if you go to the search page and you type in a subject or a person or an event, let's say Lynch Park, since homecoming's coming up pretty soon, what it will feed back to you is materials that we have related to Lynch Park, whether they're images, documents, information about people connected to Lynch Park. So you can learn a lot about what we have in our collection, even if you can't ever come through the door here. And I think that's particularly important because there are a lot of people who are interested in Beverly who no longer live here and perhaps will not find it convenient to come here. You can also, through that process, order a copy of an image. If you see one you'd like to hang on your wall in your home or office, we can also help you with that. The other thing that we're hoping people will be very excited about, and we would love your feedback, is we have dramatically increased the number of events and the variety of events that we do here. So for instance, we have started something called Spotlight Tours, which are short 15-minute programs that focus on a particular object in one of our houses. So you can come, drop by to see what's new and get a little bit of information on an object. The next one is on the Declaration of Independence in honor of the 4th.
And we do have a copy.
And we do have a 1776 Salem printed copy of the Declaration of Independence. The other thing that we hope will come out of this is that people will take another look at us, because if you thought you knew us, perhaps we're doing a few more things that you weren't aware of, and we'd like you to check us out again. Anything else, Fred, that you'd like me to cover?
No, Susan, very good synopsis.
Thank you.
The hallway here is a cantilevered stairwell, which is 1781, is extraordinarily important and extraordinarily early. Years ago, we had someone that was doing federal sea captains' houses, and he wanted to come to the Cabot House to see the stairway and to see some of the nice woodwork that is here. We'll step into the main room here, Sue, and maybe talk a little bit about that.
So this is the parlor of the Cabot House. This is the one room in the house that is still set up as a historic house might be set up. Because we are a research facility and a program facility in addition to a historic house, we're trying to do a lot of different things in one space. But this is a wonderful room, both to evoke the space where some affluent Beverly people lived in the 18th century, and also to tell the story of Beverly and its connection to the sea, which was essential to its growth in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Cabots were ship owners and privateer owners. They traveled all over the world. They brought back items from all over the world, and you see some similar items in this room today to indicate their travels to Europe and to Asia. None of these items belong to the Cabot family. When they moved, they took their possessions, as you and I would do, but they are evocative of the period and the story that we would like to tell here.
The large portrait over here is of Moses Brown, who was a friend of John Cabot's, a contemporary, actually a business part of Andrew Cabot, and his wife here. This is a Gilbert Stewart, and this is a Frothingham, and a Chickering piano. And over here, probably one of the nicest pieces in our entire collection is a Secretariat of Moses Brown. And at the top is a sculpture of John Milton by Skillen of Salem. And people were so interested in that we had a copy of the statue made at the top of that and sent to Texas years ago under David Goss.
And I do want to just do a shout out for Phil Lowe and the Furniture Institute of Massachusetts, which is in Beverly, because they restored that piece many years ago.
Phil absolutely loved that piece. And before he restored it, Susan, it was pretty shaky.
I didn't see it, but I believe it. They do wonderful work there, and they also offer terrific classes. Last year for our biennial Old Planners Reunion, Phil did a wonderful class on early furniture making for us.
Yeah, Beverly's very fortunate to have him. He's down by Jubilee Yacht Club in that large building across from the entrance. Well, the Indian shutters are an interesting aspect here too, and the 14-foot ceilings. When you made it in Beverly, we think this is the first brick mansion in the city. When you made it, you had high ceilings, right? And we have them here. Fortunately, we don't have a picture of John Cabot or a painting or anything that we know exists. He had a couple of slaves up on the third floor, am I right, Susan?
Perhaps.
And the back entryway, of course, was for servants. And but it's a beautiful house. In pretty good shape, thanks to what you and others have done.
Well, we try. We've had the property since 1892, just a year after we were founded, and it has served us well. We are currently exploring ways to make it accessible, however, because it is difficult to get in if you are not very mobile. And so we hope over the next year or two to figure out if there's a way to add an elevator so that everybody can experience the building.
And I would appreciate that.
Everybody would appreciate that. That's right. It would also make it much easier to move collections from floor to floor.
We're going to go over to Hale property, so we'll be leaving Cabot House soon, but thank you for the introduction.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
We're here at the Hale Farm on Hale Street, the home of John Hale, the first minister of the First Church. Home built approximately 1690, and a beautiful piece of property owned by the Historical Society in the middle of Beverly, on probably about an acre of land, am I right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Susan, you've done some nice things here.
Well, this is great. I'm so glad you got an image of that sign, because we've done a lot here in the past 3 years, and it's really due to the Community Preservation Act, which was passed by Beverly residents a few years ago. So this property has had multiple additions. You're looking right now, this part that is closest to the street is from about 1745. And one of the things that happens to organizations like ours that own historic properties is very, very difficult to keep up with the maintenance. And the organization has struggled with that throughout its history. And so what the CPA has allowed us to do is to create a plan that would rehabilitate and restore the outside of the building and the property. And also to start an endowment that will provide enough funds eventually so that we will not get into this deferred maintenance trap again. So up till this point, what we have done is we restored all 5 of the chimneys. Here, we have almost completely finished the outside of the building. So we opened it up at the bottom and we looked at the sills and we replaced some clapboards and we worked on the windows, and it certainly looks a whole lot better than it did. And we are starting to work on the landscape, and what that involves is creating a plan
I'm gonna walk out there.
for what we can do reasonably to have it be usable but also representative of the period of the house and help us to tell the story of John Hale and his descendants, the Bancrofts. Shall we walk in, Fred?
We're standing here at the Hale house at the front door, which had extensive renovation work done in the last year. Susan?
Well,
Wanna
and
talk
this,
about it?
certainly. And so this, again, is the mid-18th century part of the house. To my left is the original building, about 1694, where John Hale actually lived. And this door is an original component of that 18th century addition. So it was really important to us that we were able to restore it. And it just looks tremendous here. We're very excited about this. In addition to the fact that the building looks better, of course, the fact that it's been cared for and repainted means that it's in better condition, it is better able to resist deterioration, and we will keep up with that paint now, as we had not in the past, unfortunately, to make sure we don't get into this situation again. This building is not open as often as the Cabot House, unfortunately. Part of that is a staffing issue. It is open June, July, and August every year, 2 or 3 days a week. I encourage you to come visit. It's a wonderful house that tells the story not only of the Hale family, but of the evolution of Beverly from a very small farming village to the thriving city that it is today. So it has a lot of great stories to tell. John Hale, of course, was connected to the Salem witchcraft era and later wrote a very important book about his observations on what happened then.
Sort of an apology.
Sort of. The property, as Fred said, is about an acre. It's a wonderful place to have events. We, every July, have free Shakespeare on the lawn in the backyard. This year, focusing on the Henry plays. It's a great place to come and bring a picnic and enjoy a weekend in the sun. At least we hope it will be in the sun.
And on the 31st, I'll be doing a historic walk from here.
Right, and Fred also does occasional walking tours from here. You're now looking at the backyard, towards the backyard from the 17th century original part of the building. The Hales at one time owned 100 acres here, which went all the way to the ocean. And that meant that there was nothing between them and Dane Street Beach, which was originally their property. Now, with the acre that's remaining, we are, as I said before, trying to create an appropriate and feasible plan to maintain the property for generations to come. Fred, anything else you'd like to
Yeah, we have to.
cover here?
The oldest part of the house is right ahead where he's filming. There's about 4 rooms, we think.
There would have been originally 2 rooms up and 2 rooms down with a central fireplace and staircase. The central fireplace, as is common with a lot of 17th century buildings, was removed at one point and the exterior fireplaces were added. And as people do when they become more affluent, they added on to the buildings when they were able to do so. So in 1744-45, the Hale family added on extensively to the building. There also were later additions in the 19th century, the mid-19th century, 1 floor for a kitchen and a laundry, and then a 2nd floor was added to that in the late 19th century. And the property has been in the hands of Historic Beverly since the 1930s, when the last of the Bancrofts who lived here sold it to us. And we were honored to have received it and think it's just a jewel in this community and a wonderful green space very close to downtown Beverly.
Hale Street is well named, Susan. Hale's grandson, Hale is buried at the Abbott Street Cemetery with both of his wives, and his grandson, who was very active. He was a doctor and helped lay out the street. And Hale Street, of course, ran to Jeffries Creek, Susan, which was, of course, Manchester. And off of Hale Street is Over Street, which runs to by Lynch Park, which is 1640s. Again, going down to where you put boats in. Susan, this looks amazing, all the trees and shrubs that have been taken out.
What we did here, and it does look very different, is we took out a lot of trees, but we only took out trees that either were damaged and would not survive, or that were interlopers to the site, species that did not belong here. We will be, over the next few years, replanting particularly beech trees, which are a very important part of the history of this property, and we'll also be doing some other kinds of perennial planting, particularly around the perimeter. I should add that in addition to the help that we get from the CPA, the help that we get from our members and our donors, we also have a very active neighborhood group here. The people that live on Bancroft Avenue understand what a special place this is, and they are working with us to try and help us complete the vision that we have for this property so that it will be a real asset to the community.
Susan, we have to talk about two things here. This tree straight over here was planted for Marguerite Harris.
Right.
Marguerite wrote a book on Hale, which we have at the Historical Society, which includes the beginning of Beverly, the original town meeting vote, etc. And she was very, very much involved in Hale Farm.
She was, and I had an opportunity to meet her when I first came here, and her love for the organization was apparent. She really did a lot to help that this property in particular and the organization as a whole thrived. And what was the second thing?
The marker there on the stone.
Right.
Beverly Improvement Society.
Beverly Improvement Society, which originally owned one section of the backyard here that was later also turned over to Historic Beverly.
What was here for years were 3 giant beech trees that were planted in the 1859. They're now all gone. They were beginning to decay and fall down, and I think the last one was taken out recently. And this tree over here behind us is an English tulip tree, which perhaps goes back to the Revolutionary War period, planted by Hale.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a very old tree. I don't know how well we've pinpointed the exact age. It is unfortunately reaching the end of its life. It's an absolutely beautiful tree, but all trees have a lifespan. When this one has to come down, we will replant a tulip tree in its place.
From this angle, you can see the repaired chimneys. You can see the wooden roof, which is aged nicely. The French door here that opens to the patio, where you have a very pretty view. And the original house, which is over here to the right. And this would have been the servants' quarters over here.
At some point, we hope to put back a porch that was right along here. When the Bancrofts lived here, there was a patio and a porch, and that would be great from an aesthetic point of view, but it also has a really important function in that it helped protect those French doors from the weather. They're really vulnerable because of the type of door they are. We've just restored them, but they will deteriorate again if we can't introduce something to keep some of the wind and the precipitation off of them. But that's down the road in the next few years. We're focusing on getting the landscape rehabilitation started this year.
Susan, I want to thank you.
Thank you,
for spending time with us on our program today. Thank BevCam for coming here and doing this. And again, for people watching the program, thank you. And hopefully we'll have another new program soon.
Bye.